I started the research for this video by taking a look at the different camera partnerships that have existed with smartphone brands over the years. From the xenon flash that existed on the Sony Ericsson K800 Cybershot to Huawei and Leica partnership to Zeiss on Sony, Nokia and Vivo phones, and now Oneplus on Hasselblad, all of these camera partnerships with smartphone brands have tried to revolutionize smartphone photography in one way or the other. However, not all of these partnerships have succeeded, and there have been good and bad aspects to it. And even today, whenever someone talks about cameras on smartphones, the first three brands that come to mind are Google, Samsung and Apple. Three brands that haven't had any sort of brand partnership yet. So the question is, should the other brands stop trying it altogether, or try to persist and find out ways to revolutionize smartphone photography? That's what we're going to explore in this video. My name is Ershad. You're watching Trakin Tech English. Let's go. Now, one of the best camera partnerships on smartphones, according to me, has to be the Huawei and Leica partnership. It started off with the Huawei P9 and now it has become so good that the P20 Pro, I remember, was one of my favorite camera phones out there. Essentially, these phones were co-engineered with Leica, where Leica lenses were used. But fun fact, these Leica lenses were not really glass, but actually plastic. And interestingly, the P series camera smartphone lenses are actually manufactured by a third party on a blueprint of specifications provided by Huawei and Leica, agreed upon by them together. Now, this partnership was only meant for still photos. However, Leica's engineers and Huawei's engineers worked together initially, at least, for building on, the kind of, standards and protocols that would go into creating the kind of images that you got from the P series phones, where Leica would actually work deeply with the Huawei team to work on how the sensor, the ISP and the tuning would be done on these phones. And there were special Leica color modes as well. The Leica black and white photography mode, which started off in the Huawei P9, was so damn good. I've taken some pictures with it, and the kind of results that I got with it were actually very impressive. In fact, do you remember the P30 Pro? I distinctly remember one of this excellent travelogue that I saw made by Sandeep Sharma when he was with Rev Atlas, and the kind of footage that he put out there, it was crazy what those cameras could actually achieve. But unfortunately, Leica's inputs in these P series phones started dwindling after the P30 Pro with the P40 Pro and the P50 Pro. However, this exclusive partnership with Leica is ending soon for Huawei, and that makes sense considering Huawei doesn't have such deep entrenched smartphone presence all across the globe after its dispute with the US. And obviously, Leica is looking for a new partner, and they did end up working with Sharp on their phone Sharp Aquos R6, but I don't think that's some sort of exclusive deal. And more importantly, that same phone was rebranded and made into a Leica Lights One very own original smartphone. Now, the most interesting thing about both these phones is the fact that it has a massive 1-inch sensor, which is used from the Sony RX100 Mark IV. Now, the important thing to note here with these phones is that it doesn't really matter if you have the hardware. Leica and Sharp both don't have the computational photography chops, and therefore you ended up with bad dynamic range performance, some slow shutter speed issues. So there were some issues that existed with these phone cameras as well, and that was covered by international YouTubers. Now, I think that the only brand that Leica can partner with right now is Xiaomi, and it makes sense as well considering the Mi 11 Ultra was such a great phone, and Xiaomi's next phone, partnered with Leica's prowess, could actually be a great product. And you must be wondering, why can't they partner with somebody like an Oppo, Vivo or OnePlus? Now, OnePlus has already partnered with Hasselblad, which we are aware of, and apparently the Hasselblad partnership is also now going to extend to Oppo as well, considering the two brands have merged together now, and we might see the Hasselblad partnership in the Find X5 as well. And we're already aware that Vivo has partnered with Zeiss on its lenses, and you could find it on the X60 Pro Plus, X70 Pro Plus and whichever next X series phone is going to come. Now, unlike the Leica partnership, which is generally an exclusive, Zeiss generally has a more free-flowing hand with different brands that it works with. However, it is generally restricted to the Zeiss T-Star coating on the lenses of these smartphones. It started, if you remember, with the Nokia N9 and then went on to the Nokia 808 PureView and of course the Nokia 9 PureView that was launched with Android recently. And obviously the Zeiss partnership also extended to Vivo now, like I mentioned, so it is present on the Vivo X series of phones like the X60 Pro Plus and the X70 Pro Plus. And interestingly, the Vivo partnership doesn't just limit itself to the Zeiss T-Star coating lens. It also extends to fun, Zeiss portrait modes that have been integrated within the camera app itself. Having said that, that's not really, revolutionizing smartphone camera photography, but just some additional modes that you get with it. I think that the Zeiss partnership is generally just limited to the lenses, and it's not very deeply integrated with the sensor, the ISP, and the algorithm. Interestingly, Zeiss's partnership with Sony also extends way back, especially considering the fact that they've made Zeiss lenses on Sony's very own full-frame lenses as well. Now, this partnership has also extended to smartphones. It started off with the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. But it's important to know that Sony also makes its own alpha lineup of cameras, which are possibly the best, and which is the one that we're actually using to shoot this video as well. Now, this alpha tech has now also been extended to Sony's very own smartphones as well. So much so that one of Sony's latest phones, the Sony Xperia Pro I, actually comes with a 1-inch sensor that was used in the Sony RX100 Mark VII. But that sensor inside the Sony Xperia Pro I also comes with a catch. You don't get the entire 1-inch sensor. You actually get a cropped sensor of 1 by 1.3 inch only. And while Sony makes great hardware, undoubtedly great hardware, its computational photography shops are not as good as, Apple, Samsung, or Google, and therefore it struggles with the high dynamic range performance in photographs. Now, coming to the final camera smartphone partnership, the Oneplus and Hasselblad partnership. Now, we've seen 3 phones with this Hasselblad partnership already, which is the OnePlus 9, the 9 Pro, and the OnePlus 10 Pro. And the initial reviews of especially the OnePlus 9 Pro weren't very positive. Yes, they've improved the facial tones and later added an expand mode as well, but the results were generally not very consistent across the board. A lot of reviewers actually felt that the OnePlus 8 Pro took better pictures than the OnePlus 9 Pro. And I think that it is actually too early for us to judge and say if Hasselblad has made a huge difference to the OnePlus partnership. I think we'll have to wait and watch to see how they improve it over a period of time. So finally, should brands actually stop these partnerships? No, I don't think so that is the case. Now let me tell you that most professional cameras don't do any sort of inbuilt HDR bracketing. They depend on the photographers to take multiple levels of exposure in different f-stops and actually process them in post. And smartphones need to have this computational photography prowess primarily because the physical space that you have for adding these very tiny lenses and then to actually create the kind of big camera depth and bokeh, you need to have some sort of background processing to be able to achieve the difference between the subject and the background, to do even something like a fake blur, which is of course called a portrait mode now, and even something like low light photography where these small sensors can't let in a lot of light. So there are ways where smartphone brands actually use computational photography to improve that, and that's called a night mode. So HDR, night mode, low light photography, all of this happens in software. In fact, a lot of folks are also saying that traditional camera brands should try something like this, where they use the power of a smartphone chip to create in-camera processing as well, and also improve in-camera processing more importantly. Having said that, don't hold out your hope for that, but if smartphone brands are trying out partnerships with camera brands, I personally feel that they should use them for the kind of hardware prowess they have and do the software processing in-house. So those were my consolidated thoughts on camera partnerships and smartphone brands. Do let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. Until next time, this is Ershad signing off. Keep tracking and stay safe.